Great to see everyone tonight. I am going to work from sort of the top down, and I've got lots of stretches. I'll try to get to as many as I possibly can, and then at the end, if you've got questions, we can certainly go over different different areas that you might, if we've missed. I mean, certainly I'll miss something because everyone's got an ache or pain in their, it's like, oh, I've got an ache or pain here. When we think about stretching, we always think, oh, I need to stretch because I have some sort of pain, or it's just like I'm super tight, so I go to reach for something, or I go, and then suddenly my back hurts or my neck hurts. What we find with breast cancer survivors is that, we've got sort of a lot of neck pain, shoulder pain, because of the motion. So tonight I'm going to start with the neck area. That is something that there's a lot of muscles in there, and you don't realize that you may be holding your head in a certain way. And I know if a lot of us are on the computer, there's sort of a jetting forward of our head. So the first thing we're going to do is just kind of do a little warm up for our neck. And so what I want you to do is just to sort of do an up and down, sort of a gentle up and down. So you're sort of like bringing the head up and down and your chin to your chest. Start to stretch those muscles, few of those, and then come back to the middle. And now what I want you to do is now we're going to go to one side and then the other. So you're just going to go side to side. So we're sort of keeping the shoulders square and really just bringing our head from side to side. And what you may start to notice if you haven't done this recently is that maybe you've got one side that's a little tighter than the other. So that tells us that you've got, sort of a strain. Maybe you're holding the phone on one side, or you're doing something sort of awkward. So you've got one side that's a little tighter than the other. Let's start off with, I'm just going to have you have your hands to your side, and we're going to start by just looking down. It's like you're looking down at your shoulder. So I'm here, and what I want to do is I'm going to just look down, and you're going to feel the stretch. So I'm looking to my right, and you're going to feel the stretch on the opposite side. So I'm just going to come and look down at my shoulder, and then come back up to the middle. We're going to do the opposite side. So now I'm just gentle stretch. So I'm looking down at my shoulder. Come back up to the middle. We're going to do that again on the opposite side. So I'm going to look down at the shoulder, sort of feel the stretch on the opposite side. Come back up to the middle, and then opposite side. It's important when you're stretching the neck to just be very gentle, right? You don't want to be any stretching. You want to have the body warmed up to try and stretch, and you don't want to have any jerking motions that you're trying to stretch and you're trying to jerk through the stretch. It's always gentle, and especially with the neck area. Okay, so then now we're going to do the same sort of thing, but now we're going to look up. So what I want you to do is sort of look up and away, and you're sort of starting to stretch out these muscles in the neck. So it's up and away, and then come back to the middle, and then up and away, and then back to the middle. You can also add on this one sort of a jaw stretch. So you're up, and then you're really jettisoning your chin up towards the sky. So it's like you're leading with your chin as you push up and away. Come back down. And then the same thing, sort of up and away. Use the chin to sort of push towards the ceiling. You start to feel all those muscles down the front. Okay, now what I'm going to have you do is you're going to put one hand behind your back. Anytime we're doing any kind of head stretches where I'm asking you to put your, use your hand, where you're actually pulling your head, you're really going very light on the fingertips. So it's, if anything, it's just like one finger, okay? So what I'm doing is I've got one finger on the head and I'm just pulling it down. So I'm sort of looking into my armpit and I'm pulling the head down. So I've got this little sideways action happening. Just a nice, light, gentle pull, and then back up to the middle. We'll switch sides. So arm is behind the back, finger up on top of the head, and then gently pull down so you're pulling your head towards your armpit. And then come back up. We'll do that again. So we're going to go opposite sides. So now I've got my hand here, grab my head and gently pull down. And then back up. And we switch sides. Arm is behind the back. So again, fingers on top of the head, pull down gently. And then back up. We're going to do a front cervical pull. We're just going to use one hand again because I don't want you like yanking on your neck. So again, we'll just use one hand. So you just have the other hand down at the side. So you're just going to be sort of slightly on the back of your head, and you're just going to pull it down so you're pulling your chin towards your chest. So you're just going to take a nice deep breath, inhale and exhale, and bring that forward. And then bring the head back up. A lot of times when you're doing this cervical stretch, you will feel it sometimes all the way up and down the spine. You have muscles that go from the top of the head all the way down to the end of your spine. And so that connection is just, the extensors are part of that frame that supports your spine. You will feel this, or you can feel it all the way down. So you're going to, again, pull down just gently on the neck and then come back up. The basic move, and we're going to do a couple more of the neck stretches. Basic move for sort of prepping for our neck. And people who have had neck problems sort of know this as one of the exercises that they do. You know, what we're trying to do is we're trying to stay very upright. And basically what we're trying to do for the neck is move it forward and back. And so this is sort of a turtle effect. And so if you're looking at it from the side, you're sort of jetting your chin out, right? Keeping the eyes level, and then bringing your chin back in. Again, the eyes don't move. I'm just sort of putting my face forward or out, and then I'm bringing it back in. So you're sort of doing this forward and back. And you can do this, we're doing it standing. You can also do it lying on the ground, right? So you're sort of, you're on the ground and you're raising your head up, holding it there, and then coming back down. That helps to really strengthen the muscles of the neck. So that's a great one to do if you're lying down. You can do it standing. It just sort of preps you for your, sort of shoulder or neck exercises. Okay, the next one is, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our clavicle here. So we've got our fingertips on our clavicle. So we're sort of pulling down on that, and we're going to jettison our head backwards. Like the jaw's going to go, the chin's going to go towards the ceiling. You're really going to push it up and away. And then come back down. So you're really forcing the chin to go up towards the sky. So again, let's bring our heads back, pull and push the chin, and then come back down. Okay. Last one for this series is we're going to do, hand is going to be down, or it's going to be behind us, right? And so what I want you to do is it's two movements. I've got, similar to the one we did before, where I've got my hand on my head and I'm looking here, but what I'm going to do is, as I'm pulling, I'm also going to be moving my chin in the opposite direction. So I'm pulling down gently, and now what I'm doing is I'm forcing my chin to go in the opposite direction. So it's sort of like you're looking down at your armpit, and then you're turning ever so slightly with the chin. That one's a slightly different thing. You hit a slightly different set of muscles with that. Let's try it on the opposite side. So now I'm looking at my armpit. I'm pulling my head that way, and then I'm sort of pulling down and then rotating my chin the opposite direction. It's like everyone's neck starts cracking and you're like, wow, okay, I didn't realize it could do that. We'll do that one more time. So we're gonna go hand behind the back. We're gonna look down at the side here. So we're looking down and then we're sort of opposite, moving the chin in the opposite direction. And this is for the upper traps. So the traps are these long muscles that are on the sides of the neck. And then come on back up, switch. We're gonna do this on the opposite side again. So I've got it, I'm pulling down and then I'm rotating ever so slightly with my chin, going the opposite direction. One that I'm gonna do, and we didn't ask you ahead of time to get a towel, but I'm just gonna demonstrate it so you can see. If you have a towel handy, fantastic. You know, this is kind of a cool one in that you have the towel here, and now I've kind of crisscrossed my arms, right? So now I have my hands, one's holding the towel, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the towel and wrap it across my jaw, and I'm going to pull my head away. And what I like to do with this position is now I've got my head sort of pulled away, try to go opposite direction. So now I'm trying to bring my head back to the center just gently ever so, and then relax and pull back. So you're providing a little bit of tension against it. So now again, tension towards the middle, and then pull back. All right, we're gonna switch sides. So I've got my little crisscross, right? I've got one hand, so the towel's coming right across the jaw, and I'm pulling it away. It's the opposite side. Now in this position, you're getting a good stretch, but now we wanna act like we're going back towards the middle with a little bit of tension, and then relax and pull. So kind of a handy thing, you know, you can use the towel. We will use the towel again later, so you can keep it handy because we're going to do a shoulder exercise with that. So we'll put that to the side. I think in one of the other sessions, I talked a little bit about the interior rotation. So what happens with, you know, a lot of what I see with a lot of breast cancer patients is that, and you know, everybody is the same way. If you are on the computer for, you know, long periods of time, you know, you're sort of in this hunched over position. If you've had surgery, if your breasts are large, generally what happens is your hands end up sort of in front of you, right? So you're kind of in this position. And the way that you want natural position with the body is that you want your hands on the sides of your body, right? So if I was having you do a little jogging test and then your hands, and I had you stop, then your hands should finish right next to the body. But what I see with breast cancer patients is that, in fact, if it's like this is my affected side, my right side, sometimes it'll be even more extreme on one side versus the other. And that's that your chest is really tight, right? And so what we need to try and do is open up the chest and get the hands further away, okay? So what we want to do is stretch the chest. What we work on is stretching the chest and working the upper back. And it's also sort of a movement for opening up the chest. So two parts. This is part of a open and close. So I'm going to have you do an open and close with a 90. So we're here, and then I'm going to have you squeeze your shoulder blades together in the back. For posture purposes, you know, this is opening the chest, and so we're sort of getting that stretch across the back. So it's a twofold. We're getting a stretch here. And then if we squeeze our muscles in the back, our scapula here, we're starting to work that upper back. This is one of the best postural exercises you could do throughout the day, right? So we do this sort of open and close. So open and close, where I'm opening the chest up, and then I'm squeezing these muscles in the back. So a little open and close. This is a 90, what I call a 90 open and close. Some people, when I actually will test out for this, and I'll have them turn to the side, and I'll say, okay, show me how far back you can go. And that's also sort of an indicator of how strong their back is. You know, if you're only going to there, then we really need to work on stretching the chest and really getting those back muscles working so that you get a better range of motion. Doing this in sort of a straight arm fashion, we're going to do open and close where the back of the hands are together. So we're just going to go straight ahead. And then we're going to take our thumbs and open them up. So again, this will give you a little more range of motion. So it's sort of open and close, back and forth. And you start to feel, now that you've got sort of a bigger range, maybe more stretch. You know, for me, my right side is my affected side. So this side. And, you know, a lot of these exercises, depending on how much I've been stretching, I will definitely feel it's tight. You know, I'm 5 years out. You know, radiation, surgery scars, all those things are a constant shrink on these areas. And so if you're not keeping it supple, you're going to get this sort of balling up. And so we want to try and keep that range of motion. So range of motion is something that you are always going to have to work on, right? And that's the part of what we're doing today. So that's sort of an open and close. Now we're going to do what I call the backstroke. And so you think about, you know, swimming. And when you swim, you do the backstroke, you're leading with the pinky. Keep everything kind of solid here. Unlike swimming, we're not turning the torso. We're going to keep everything straight ahead. And what I want you to do is think about brushing your ear with your arm. So your pinky is hitting the water behind you, and you're just sort of doing this lovely backstroke. Certainly swimming, if you can do it, is great for the upper body. Nice. Now, we're going to do something that you probably have seen. It's called shoulder floss. You know, so you can take the towel that we had before, or if you have a stretchy band. I mean, you don't, even if you don't have that, you can just do it without it. But we're going to go forward and back. So find an angle, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to keep the same distance in the front, up and over the top, and to the back, right? When you do this with a yoga strap, you don't have the benefit of having something that's stretchy. So this is a little bit of a cheater, but you know, if you're tight, you're trying to get this sort of full range of motion. And sometimes you'll feel like, I can do it this way or I can do it that way, but just make it long enough so that it feels good, and you can try to rotate all the way around. So open and close. This is called flossing. Nice. So we'll put that down. We're going to do a back floss, which is, you can use the same, you can use that if you like, or you can use the towel. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the towel and drape it down my back. And what I'm going to try and do is, it's like I'm, you know, doing a drying off my back, right? And so what I want to do is I'm going to use my upper hand upper hand pull my other hand up my back. And so then I can come up and down. So I'm sort of doing this up and down motion. Each time, hopefully I'm getting a little more range of motion with the arm that's bent behind me. So I'm sort of flossing. And again, go gently, don't go quickly. So you're just sort of up and down, trying to get a little more range of motion with the arm. So you're sort of pulling, using your arm to pull the other one up as you go. And then we'll switch sides. So again, drape the towel along the back, and then we're going to do the sort of up and down. And this is definitely, again, my affected side. You know, I use this as a test to see how far up my back I can get my affected side. My hand doesn't go quite as high as on my unaffected side. So this is a great help to try to help me get that range of motion in my shoulder. So again, I'm sort of drying my back or flossing my back with this action. Cool. Put our towel down. So, great stretch for the back. I don't have something I can hold on to, but you know, if you're out and about, walking around, and there's like a bar at a playground or a railing or that type of thing, you can grab that railing, sort of grab it, and you're going to create sort of a C shape. So your body's kind of going forward, and you're kind of falling forward to open the chest up. Well, I don't have a railing here, so we're just going to use our hands to open up our back. So pick a hand, right? So I'm going to grab my wrist with my opposite hand. So we're going to go one arm at a time. So I've got my arm straight down my back, and then what you're going to do is you're going to raise the arm away from the body. So we'll do one side and then we'll do the other. And you can kind of practice and see, okay, is one side better than the other? Can I get it up a little higher? So we're just going to go one at a time, drag that away from the body, and then shake the hands out. Right, so it's like sometimes that's a little much. Grab the opposite side. So now we have opposite hand, and then pull away from the body. You know, in yoga, they'll have you plant your hands together in the back. I'm just trying to have it so that we can open up that chest, because we really want to try and open up the chest. That's a very simple exercise to do if you don't have a piece of equipment like a bar or something that you can hang on to. So you're just going to use your hands. So that's sort of an opener. Okay. We're going to do a shoulder opener against the wall. So I'm going to do a slight change of scenery here. So we're going to be to the side. So what I want to do is I'm going to have my hand up against the wall, and my arm is right in line with my shoulder. My feet are together, and so I've got my hand here like I'm holding the wall up. And for some people, they're going to feel, if their bicep is really tight, feels like an electric shock through the shoulder. So even doing this can create a lot of tension. So we want to try and loosen up the area. And so what I want you to do is think about taking your elbow and flipping it back and forth. So I've got my hand on the wall. My hand is not moving. I'm just sort of in this sort of stable position, flipping the face of my elbow back and forth. So it starts to really open the shoulder up as we go. And I won't, well, I can go to flip my, so now we're going to switch hands. So switch to the opposite side, flip back and forth, keeping the hand right parallel with the shoulder. You just want to have it straight ahead, your feet are straight ahead, and you're sort of opening that shoulder up. I'm going to demonstrate the next part of this, even though I'm going to have you guys do it on both sides. I will be facing you for both sides. Go back to the first position, right? So now we have this first position, my arm straight against the wall. What I want you to think about is imagine there is a piece of paper underneath the wall, underneath your hand, and I'm trying to move that piece of paper, but I'm not moving my hand. And so what I want you to think about doing is moving your hand up, moving your hand down, moving your hand forward, and then moving your hand back. So it's very subtle, these are very subtle movements, but you're not really moving your hand is staying there. It's like you're pushing up on the wall, you're coming down on the wall, you're going forward, and then you're going back. So we'll do that again. So you're going up, down, forward, and back. And now switch to the opposite hand. So you're going to switch it around to the opposite hand. So you're going to go up, down, forward, and back. And then again, up, down, forward, and back. So shake the hands out a little bit. That's, just a nice little variation. We're going to use the door jam here, and I'm going to, walk away slightly so you can sort of see it. The door jam is a great way to stretch the chest area. And there's a couple different things that I like to do on the door. So we're going to do all the stretches using the door jam, right? And because you can walk through. So hopefully you have, if you don't have the same setup, then you can kind of imagine it or practice it at a different time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into the door jam. And I'm going to be at 90. So I've got my arms at 90, and I'm going to have either arm on either side of the door jam, and then I'm going to walk through the door jam. So I am pressing through my chest. So I've got this sort of forward motion as I'm going through the door jam. Now you can do different variations on the door jam where you are at 90 and you're coming through the door jam, or you can have straight arms as you're coming through the door jam, kind of figure out what makes the most sense for you. And then the other thing I like to do is I like to hang on the door jam. Let's see, there. So I've got just my fingertips are at the top. It doesn't have to be a door jam, but it allows me to get that full stretch down the side of the body and, almost sinking into it. So depending on if you have something to pull on, I think it's a great way to elongate the muscles. And the last thing that you can do in the door jam is, again, I don't have a railing or something that I can hold on to, but I can use the door jam to help me create a sort of a stretch where I'm holding and I'm just sort of laying back. It's sort of a back squat. So my legs are at 90 and I'm sort of in a seated position and I'm putting all my weight backwards. So you'll feel a nice stretch in the shoulders, and you'll start to get a nice stretch also in the legs. All right, we'll turn the camera one more time. We're going to start to move towards lower body, right? So we're moving towards the lower body, and we're going to do a standing hamstring stretch. Now, a lot of times when you're out walking, you are, Hamstrings are something that when your hamstrings are tight, it starts to pull or hinge the hips, right? So hamstrings are here on the back of the leg, right? And if they're tight, it acts like a pulley system on your back. So they're pulling one way, right? So you've got the hip flexors on the front and you've got the hamstrings on the back. And a lot of times the back pain can be alleviated by keeping the hamstrings nice and flexible. Standing hamstring stretch, you can do this when you're out walking. It's like suddenly, you start to feel tight. You can do it right after you've done your walk. Generally, you want to be warmed up to try to do the hamstring stretches. But we're just going to do this where you've got one foot in front of the other. So it's a staggered step. And I'm going to have my hands here on the couch. So I'm one foot in front of the other. This is a great shoulder stretch. So I come forward and I'm pressing my chest towards the ground. So I've got my hands on something, on a pole or on the couch or something. And you're going to feel the stretch in the leg that's in the front. So the leg that's in the front, both legs need to be perfectly straight. You're throwing your hips backwards and your arms forward. You're pressing your chest towards the ground. So you also, depending on what you have your hands on, you're going to feel this in your shoulders as well. To come out of this, I say gently bend the knees. So you're going to soften the knees and come up. And then we're going to go and do the opposite side. So now again, I've got my legs are straight, one leg forward, you've got a staggered step. I'm going to slide my hands forward, lowering my chest to the ground. So I'm sort of parallel to the ground or even further. And nice stretch in the hamstrings. Hi. The other thing I like to do, and it's the same sort of stretch, but you can basically take it as, you can have anything that you're holding on to. Take your legs apart. So now we did the hamstring stretch, and it's a nice, you're getting the hamstrings as well, but you're also going to feel this in the shoulders. In this position, bend one leg. Right, so now you're going to feel it on the straight leg side. You possibly will feel the adductors on the inside of your leg. And then shift to the opposite side. So you're sort of gently shifting from side to side. Anytime, remember at the beginning I was talking about like stretching, and that it should always be sort of a gentle action. There is a little, it's called the Golgi tendoni, and it's inside your muscle. And if you try to bounce or stretch in a way where you do it in sort of a fast motion, that will stimulate, and it'll actually, the muscle will contract. So as you're trying to stretch, that little tendoni will stimulate and the muscle will contract. So you actually could injure yourself if you don't do it correctly. Okay, so that sort of starts to get our hips, right, in sort of a little more fluid motion. The other thing, we've got the hamstrings. We're going to do a standing standing quadricep stretch. It's a little trickier depending on your balance, so I always recommend holding on to something. If you're not comfortable, you can hold on to a wall or a chair. What we're going to try and do is you're going to grab your foot, right? So it's going to be opposite foot. This usually is the easiest, or you can do same side, and you're going to bring your thigh parallel to the other thigh. So I'm going to hold on here, throw my hips forward. So I'm sort of pretty much straight up and down. And then switch sides. Cat is very interested in those. A lot of times we don't think about stretching our quads. You can do that lying down as well, so you can do it while you're on your side. You can grab one leg if that's a little easier than doing it standing. So something to think about. Okay, we are going to move to the floor. So if you would get your mats out, or so generally when we talk about the hips, right? A lot of things that are tight in our lower body are the hips, right? And when we say hips, like what does that mean? Well, your glutes, which are this lovely apparatus on the back of your body, you know, has layers of muscles. And so the top muscle is the glute. One of the lower muscles is it's called the piriformis. And the piriformis sits on the, you know, in that hip area. If the piriformis is super tight, right, then what happens is it starts to aggravate the lower back. And you can get pain in what's called the SI joint. And so what we want to try and do is make sure that your hips or your glutes, especially the piriformis, is loose. But because the piriformis sits so deep into the glute, it is tough to get to. So we do a combination of things. So we're going to do a couple stretches, and then I'm going to show you how to use the foam roller with it, as well as how to use either a tennis ball or what I use as a trigger point ball. So the first thing we're going to start with is called the figure 4. So you are on your back, and you're going to take, we'll do it this way. So we're going to take our ankle and put it where over our knee. And then I'm going to grab my thigh. So, and my other leg's going to be up in the air. So as I'm going to pull my thigh back to my chest, where you're going to feel this is you're going to feel this on the bent leg side. So you should be feeling this on the leg that's bent, right in the back side. That is your piriformis. So you're sort of pulling it in towards you, and then we're going to release and put that down. And then we're going to switch sides. So I'm going to take my ankle, put it over my knee, reach through my thigh, grab that, and I'm going to drag that, my leg that's towards the ceiling, back towards my chest, and then back down. So that's called a figure 4. And then more sort of, I would say, not aggressive, but if you've taken yoga classes before, they will do, and I'll demonstrate it, is a pigeon pose. Pigeon pose is one of the best stretches that you can do for the piriformis. But it's tough to do. But there's things to think about when you're doing the pigeon pose. So how do you do a pigeon pose? Move the cat out of the way, first thing. So you're in a plank, and let's say you want to warm up for this. I mean, this is just like something that I have my clients do. I just have them kind of come up and tap their toes so that we're sort of getting the hips moving. But today we're just talking about stretching, so I won't do any exercises per se. So I'm in my plank, and I'm going to take my leg across. And this in itself can be difficult for people. So my leg is sort of across, and then I'm dropping that knee to the ground. My foot is flat, and now I'm going to walk myself out. And so you sort of immediately start to feel this. Again, the bent leg is where the side, where you're going to feel the stretch. And the goal is, this is a resting pose. So in yoga class, they would have you have your head on a block. I'll do the opposite side so you can see. The goal is to get your butt towards the ground, okay? And let's say, because I want to be in a resting pose, if I can't get into a resting pose, then I want to block that with a yoga block or something that will allow me to be absolutely still. What I don't want is my hips turning. I want to have my hips square. Now, the pigeon pose is a tough pose to do, and I know that in itself it may be difficult for some people. So that's why that figure 4, which is that first one that I did, is a little easier. You can also do this in a seated position in a chair. So if you can't get on the ground, then you can sit and do it in a seated position. So here I am in my seated position, and I'm going to do a figure 4. So now I'm not on the ground, I am seated. And what I want you to think about in a seated position is that your chest is really, your spine is really upright. And so what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to round my back towards my shin. I want to have my chest up high, my spine is straight, and I'm coming straight down towards my shin. So that's a way of doing it, doing sort of the figure 4, another way of doing the figure 4. So, okay. Next thing we're going to do is a couple things. I have the foam roller. I want to show you this little apparatus. Is if your piriformis is really tight, I use either a tennis ball or I have this little thing called a trigger point ball. And the trigger point ball is a little harder than a tennis ball. So it's got a hard center, but a slightly squishier side. They have 2 different versions of this. And so it literally is the size of a tennis ball. And you can use a tennis ball, or you can use the weight, the head of a weight. But what you do is you take this, and we're going to put it right in our glute muscle. It's like, now I've done my figure 4, and I've done my pigeon pose, and it's like, oh my word, my piriformis, I've noticed that on one side it's really tight, right? And that's starting to aggravate your back and your SI joint. So the tennis ball or this sort of trigger point ball does the trick. So you're sort of putting it in the middle of your glute, and then you're rocking sort of back and forth over the top of it. And you'll know exactly where you need to put it based on the pain threshold. So you sort of work around and figure out where is it that you're feeling it the most, and kind of hang in that spot, and then you can kind of rotate back and forth. I promise you it will do the trick. You know, in this time of COVID where we are not able to get deep tissue massage, we have to kind of take care of ourselves with these different little tools to help ourselves out, right? And using the ball is a great way. The foam roller, again, the same sort of idea. We're still hitting the piriformis. So I'm using the foam roller. I'm sitting on the foam roller, and I'm going to go back to my my position where I have my ankle on my knee. And I've got that bent leg, and my glute is right on the roller. So you can do this a couple different ways. This is the hardest level, where I'm really focusing on just rolling in that one spot, right? And you're kind of hanging out on that spot. If that's too painful, you can bring it down and just come back and forth with bent legs. But rolling out the glutes and getting that piriformis, again, because it sits so deep, is really tough to do, but it will it will make a big difference. Because I think the stretching is great, but you almost need something a little more drastic. At least this is what I find with most of our clients, is that almost everybody has problems with their piriformis at one point or another. So that's a good thing. Keep track of the time here. The next thing, or the last things we're going to do a couple of chest openers, just because I love the foam roller. Even though we started with the chest and we went to the lower body, we'll come back to kind of finish with some of the exercises to work on the chest. So take the foam roller and we're going to be on it. Lie down so that it's all the way up and down your spine. So now I've got my feet apart, feet are flat. And I'm going to take this sort of crisscross thing. So my elbows are on the ground, and I'm going to take my hands, and then I'm going to tap. So I'm going to kind of crisscross one side and then the other. So I'm just sort of opening up. And then we're going to do our backstroke here. Oh, a little bit low. Right, so I want to do the backstroke here. So, you know, you can do this on the wall. You don't have to be on the ground. You can actually take the foam roller and lay it up against the wall, which I think is fine too, because if you can't get on the ground, it's a great way of doing it. The foam roller allows us to have sort of the chest open so that our shoulders are sort of dropping. So it gives us a little more range of motion. So even if you're doing it up on the wall, it's just a great way. But if you're doing it on the ground, the gravity helps to kind of keep our shoulders back. So this one I call is like poking, I call it poking the sky. So what I want you to do is think about having the arms at that 90 position. So I've got this sort of 90 position, and I'm just letting them sort of hang at the sides. You may or may not be able to get your hands down to the ground. So get them to where you feel, wherever you can, you know, if they're touching the ground, and then I want you just to slide your hands up and down. So you're sort of poking up above your head. So your hands are sort of sliding on the, you know, the ground. So you're sort of, each time you're coming down a little bit lower. And then sort of what I call the classic, which is the snow angel. Palms are towards the ceiling. So I start off with my hands at my hips. And so you can bring them up. I would slide your hand up one at a time. So I'm just trying to slide my hand all the way along the ground. You're keeping your arm perfectly straight. And you're trying to keep everything as one solid, long, straight arm and rotate it up. And you know, this we use as a range of motion indicator for how you are with your range of motion on either side. And a lot of people can't, you know, when they first come in, they can only get it to, you know, roughly at 50 degrees here or whatever. So this is a great indicator. Again, you don't need the foam roller to do it, but it does help. And the last thing we're going to do is just a chest opener where we're across the roller. So now the roller is here. And my butt is on the ground. My hands are on the opposite side of the roller. And so what I'm going to do is, in this position, I'm just going to take my back, and I want my back sort of formed over the roller. And I'm going to take my head back and just let my head hang. So my head is sort of hanging over the roller. I tell people that you know, what you can do is you can bring your shoulders up towards the sky, so you kind of shoulders up, and then exhale and let the shoulders drop, let the head drop, let everything drop. So shoulders up towards the sky, and then let everything drop. Each time you drop, you should really try to have it so that you can, it really feels like you're letting everything go. If you have someone there at home that can assist you, You can take a nice deep breath. They can have their hands on your shoulder, and then they can press down gently just to kind of give you a little more stretch. You can also, if you want to, prop your head up in the back, just to give you a little more stability, you can. I find when I come out of that stretch, because sometimes I get vertigo, that I have to either pull my head up or roll over to the side and then come up, because it does make me a little dizzy. So I know I went through those quickly, but hopefully we've got everything recorded. We can review it. You can review it